Fighting Blindness Canada's Viewpoint is a virtual education series that brings you the latest in vision research presented by health experts from across Canada. The webinar you're about to watch is a recording. To learn more about the research we fund and upcoming webinars and events, please visit our website at fightingblindness.ca. This Viewpoint webinar is proudly presented by Bayer and supported by Allergan, Janssen and Novartis. We'd also like to thank Accessible Media Inc., our national accessibility partner. Everyone here should download the AMI app, which is a fabulous resource. And you can watch excellent programming, including previous Fighting Blindness Canada events. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoy this webinar and share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. All right, so to kick us off today, first up, I want to introduce you to Doug Earle, who's Fighting Blindness Canada's president and CEO. And he's going to be having a conversation with Dr. Keith Gordon, who's a senior researcher at Canadian Council of the Blind and author of the report, and Dr. Michel Cayouette, a clinical researcher and the chair of our scientific advisory board at Fighting Blindness Canada. So if you bear with me, I'm going to introduce them now.
Welcome everyone, and I'm so happy that you're here to join us with our viewpoint on the lived experience for around the cost of vision loss and blindness. And today I'm joined by Dr. Keith Gordon and Dr. Michel Cayouette to talk about the report and its impact and what research can do in order to help meet the key findings of the report. So to begin, I'm going to speak with Keith, and from his background, just a little bit about him. Of course, he worked for CNIB and was the principal investigator for the report that we had before this one, that was using 2007 data and was published in 2009. And we're so fortunate that he became the senior research associate with the Canadian Council of the Blind and was the principal investigator for the cost of vision loss and blindness report in Canada that we just released in May, so last month, and that was using 2019 data in order to understand the social economic impact of vision loss in Canada. So thank you for joining us, Keith, this afternoon. And just to start, why don't you share with us just how many Canadians did we find living with a blinding eye disease?
We found about 1.2 million people who met the criterion of blindness. Some were more severe than others, and we divided that group into three categories: those that were blind, those that had moderate vision loss, and those that had mild vision loss. And we found that there are about 50,000 Canadians that fall into the blindness category, and the rest are sort of more or less evenly divided between moderate and mild.
Great. And when thinking about that breakdown, were there any key findings in the report around what were the drivers of the mild to moderate to severe?
Well, if you break that down by the major eye diseases, the largest cause, or the largest number of people that had a particular disease that was associated with vision loss was cataracts. About 37% of people in that 1.2 million, about 37% had cataracts. That I found a little bit unsettling, because cataracts can be treated by surgery, and there should not be that amount of vision loss due to cataracts.
Mm-hmm.
The next group was macular degeneration, about 15% of people, and glaucoma, 11%, diabetic retinopathy, 10%.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the major drivers. Then there's a whole other category which consists of people who've lost vision due to trauma and corneal diseases, and a whole slew of other less prevalent conditions.
Great. So, and how many Canadians did the report find were living with a blinding eye disease?
Well, this to me is the area that really needs a focus. We found 8 million people that have one of the 4 major eye diseases. These people have not yet lost any vision, but if they go untreated or just continue doing what they're currently doing, there's a good chance that they're going to land up with vision loss. So that's 8 million people, 2.5 million with macular degeneration, 3.7 million with cataracts.
Mm-hmm.
So the areas that need focus in my mind are macular degeneration and cataracts to make sure these people don't progress to losing further vision.
So you mentioned that 1.2 million Canadians are already experience vision loss. That from that 8 million group, what is expected by 2050? How many Canadians would be living with vision loss?
We did a projection. We estimate there'd be about 2 million people living with vision loss. If we continue doing what we're currently doing, it doesn't mean we're doing nothing, but if we don't do anything particularly different, it's going to increase from 1.2 million to 2 million.
Yeah. So I guess this is one of the reasons why we're saying the key finding of this report is that there's emerging crisis of preventable blindness. Is that correct, Keith?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's estimated that about 3/4 of vision loss is either treatable or preventable. So if we could somehow make sure that the population focuses on prevention through things such as regular eye examinations and a whole slew of public health measures, and if we can focus on this 8 million Canadians and make sure that they don't progress to vision loss, I think we can stem that number and make sure that it doesn't progress to 2 million.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's amazing that research has delivered treatments that 3 out of 4 Canadians, if diagnosed early, can be treated and stabilize their sight. That's amazing. Thinking now in the report, we did put a cost, the social economic cost of vision loss and blindness. What was that cost?
Okay, if you look at the total cost of vision loss, so if you convert these prevalence numbers into costs, was about $32.9 billion.
Wow.
Billion.
Yeah.
And that breaks down into a financial cost of $15.6 billion and a lost well-being cost of $17.4 billion. Now, the lost well-being cost isn't a financial cost. You can't go and spend it, or it isn't money that's in the bank. But it is a metric that health economists use to assess the impact of a disease. And 17.4 billion is a really significant number, and it does indicate that this is a disease that needs to be prevented, treated, and turned around.
Yeah, it's very much around the lived experience of depression, financial anxiety, and other challenges. When we looked at the direct healthcare costs, are there 2 drivers or major drivers around those direct healthcare costs?
The direct healthcare costs break down into the largest component. There is we call a vision care cost, which is the cost of visiting optometrists and opticians, and the cost of eye care, eyeglasses and contact lenses. The next largest group is the outpatient cost, which is the cost of people visiting their ophthalmologist, and the cost of outpatient surgery, cataract surgery and similar eye surgeries. So those are the 2 largest in the direct health costs.
Mm-hmm.
But in addition if I can just add on to that, in addition to the health costs, there's also a component there in the financial cost of productivity losses, which is about $4.5 billion. And that's due to people with vision loss not gaining full employment. We live in a society where people with vision loss have the ability to take pretty well any job available, but they are not. The level of employment in people with vision loss is much lower than it should be.
That's a significant concern. I was also wondering, did we have any key findings as to why the costs were basically the same as they were in the last report?
Okay, there are two things. In that direct health cost component, there's a pharmaceutical cost, which has gone up by about $1 billion since the report 10 years ago. And the main reason for that is the advent of these new medications called anti-VEGF treatments. Now, on the cost side, it's gone up by $1 billion, but on the benefit side, we've seen the level of vision loss coming down. So people that would have gone on to severe vision loss are now in the mild or moderate category. So the cost of treating, or the cost to society of people in the mild or moderate category is much less. So there's a huge benefit that offsets the cost. And I think that's one of the changes since 10 years ago. The other one is, although our population is aging and growing, there's been a large number of people developing cataracts in this period. And if you look at the number of cataracts that have been treated over that time, it's pretty well been level. Mm-hmm. So the cost has leveled off, but more and more people are losing vision.
Mm-hmm. Which ties back to why cataracts is the largest driver of vision loss in the country. Right. So, and I'm really pleased to hear the impact of research of delivering an innovative treatment since the last report that's had this type of impact on the costs. I wanted to change the topic a little bit to research. And what did the report find about vision research spending in the country in 2019?
It was, in a word, abysmal.
Oh no.
And abysmal translated, we looked at every possible source. We looked at research done by psychologists. We did research done by geneticists, by epidemiologists, and we came up with $21 million in a country of this size, where research budgets overall are in the billions. We could only find $21 million worth of vision research.
Well, Keith, that's quite an abysmal number, and I would underline abysmal. I wanted to bring in now Michel Cayouette, who is the research unit director at the Montreal Clinical Research Institute and the director of the Vision Health Research Network in Quebec. And so welcome, Michel, to our conversation.
Thank you.
And what can Canadians do when Deloitte can only find $21 million of vision research in 2019?
Yeah, well, 21 million is really not enough, obviously, and we need to do something. I think there's many things that people can do. I mean, first, they can certainly support the Vision Health Plan that's been put forward by Fighting Blindness Canada and by Canadian National Institute of the Blind. People can, of course, donate to help raise this 21 million a little bit higher, and donate to Fighting Blindness Canada and other organizations that fund research in vision research. But of course, not everyone is able to donate, and sometimes it's hard, especially now. But what everyone can do is to contact their member of parliament and tell them the importance of investing in vision research in the country. In Canada, we're leading behind investment in research, and we really need to catch up. And I think if the public actually contact their MPs and tell them the importance of investing in research, and if everybody picks up the phone and calls their MP right now, it's going to make a big difference, because those members of parliament will then have an influence on the government and hopefully change things.
Well, thanks, Michelle. Now, research, as Keith noted, research has delivered new treatments that are stabilizing the sight for 3 out of 4 people that were diagnosed early. What hope is there for that research can help the 1 in 4 today who treatments are not working or are diagnosed later in their disease, and the 800,000 Canadians that are going to have experience vision loss between now and 2050?
Yes, I think there is quite a bit of hope. There's a lot of research right now in a variety of fields actually addressing these advanced stages of vision loss. And we know that there's been great advance in gene therapy, in various drugs, including one recently approved for glaucoma. These are exciting advances, but there's also really exciting work done to try to restore vision rather than prevent vision loss or slow down vision loss. And this research is exciting. We're talking about stem cell therapies or cell replacement therapies, in which a lot of labs around the world are working to try to find ways to replace cells that were lost in disease by using stem cells, which can make any cells of the body, including the retinal cells that are lost in disease. Other approaches include very interesting reprogramming approaches, and that's one field in which my lab is working on, in trying to use cells that are spared in disease, that are already present in the retina, and convert these cells into the cells that were lost, and basically using the cells that are already present in the retina and turn them into another cell that was lost. And so this is very advanced genetic editing studies that people are doing in trying to convert cell and basically coax the cells that are present into becoming another cell type. Of course, there's also a lot of advance in optogenetics, and people might have heard of optogenetics, and that's another very exciting field that is trying to use genetics to, again, use the cells present in the retina and make them restore vision.
That's amazing, Michelle. What are some of the key initiatives needed for vision research in Canada to help meet this challenge of trying to prevent vision loss?
Well, I think there's a major need for more people to work in vision research. I mean, we need to increase research capacity in the country. And this comes with investing in talent, investing in the very best people and very best scientists, and getting them interested in vision research. I think we can help launch the careers of these scientists. We have fantastic young people who are just getting started, and they need the support, they need money, they need funding to get their careers going and be interested in vision research and make a difference. Of course, there's all sorts of programs to try to do that, including one at Fighting Blindness Canada to help launch the careers of young scientists. But we need money, obviously. We need more money into the system to try to increase that research capacity. Another thing that I think we need to do in Canada is to increase the number of clinical trials. We need to try to find ways to bring clinical trials into the country. And we have the capacity to do that. There's a fantastic tool put again together by the Fighting Blindness Canada, which is the patient registry, which is there to really help companies and research labs to design their clinical trial and find the right patients that are eligible for this clinical trial. And so I think that is a great tool to sort of encourage these people to start clinical trials in the country and not have to move and go to the US or to Europe to participate in the clinical trial.
So that's tremendous. And Michelle, of course, I have to say thank you for the volunteer role that you play as our chair of our scientific advisory board for Fighting Blindness Canada. And in that role, can you share with us some of the exciting Fighting Blindness Canada research that's going on?
Yeah, it's very exciting right now because we sat in a room and discussed all these projects coming in, and there's some really exciting science happening in Canada right now. I can give a few examples. Obviously, I don't have time to talk about everything, but one of them is Dr. Rod Bremner at the Lunenfeld-Tannenbaum Research Institute, who is using really advanced gene editing technology, the new technologies that people might have heard about, called CRISPR. And he's using this to screen for existing molecules that are already approved by the FDA in the United States, so the Food and Drug Administration, which basically oversees new drugs. And so these drugs are already approved, but he's trying to see if any of those approved drugs that might be used in other disease could work in slowing down photoreceptor degenerations, which is causing vision loss in many different retinal diseases. And he's combining this screening of these drugs with advanced gene editing technologies. So this is really a kind of a super potentially high reward type project. Of course, it's also risky, but I think Fighting Blindness Canada made the right choice in investing these type of high risk, high reward type projects. Other examples are one by Dr. Susan Mead at the University of Waterloo, basically looking at whether they can develop a better eye test for very young children, infants. And we were talking about the importance of early diagnostic earlier. And so this is exactly what they are trying to do, is to diagnose early and make a difference in the treatment that the children will receive later on. We also have people working on various approaches for gene therapy. We have one project from Dr. Elizabeth Simpson at UBC, trying to develop a gene therapy for aniridia. And all sorts of other exciting projects that I don't have time to talk about. Stem cells, of course. We also have people working on stem cell therapies.
Well, that's tremendous, and thank you for your volunteer time. Fighting Blindness Canada has 27 active grants right now, and we have 3 research competitions going on, and it's thanks to the support of our donors and thanks to your volunteer time making sure that we invest in the best, most promising research in the country. Now, another question that I've been asked is, what has been the impact of COVID on vision research?
Well, just like everybody, we have been affected tremendously by the pandemic. We had to close down labs for about a little bit over 2 months, at least here in Montreal. So this meant that we also had to basically stop all our research projects. And stopping research project even for a period of 2 months or 2.5 months means that we have to ramp up the activities after, which takes a while before we can catch up to where we were before shutting down the lab. So that had a big impact in slowing down our progress. And even today, we're still not back to 100% because of health measures, public health measures. We have to maintain social distancing and in the lab, which means that we cannot have 100% of lab members in the building and in the lab at the same time. So we operate in 2 different shifts. So some people come in the morning, some people come in the afternoon, early evening, and we try to continue our research projects that way, but it still means that we are not really 100% in the lab yet. And so we're really looking forward to have everyone back in full shifts very soon, and hopefully the situation will improve and we'll be able to get back to normal, and really because we're super excited about the project we have right now and we want to move forward.
Well, I can appreciate that, and we really, I know our donors have stepped up in the past sort of 15 months to keep research moving forward. So I'm glad at least you're able to keep it going, yes, despite all the challenges that we're facing. So I just wanted to conclude by saying thank you, Dr. Gordon, and thank you, Dr. Cayouette, for your time today and sharing with us your thoughts on the cost of vision loss and blindness report in Canada. And I know our viewers will have some questions, and we'll be pleased to share those questions with you and get the answers back to our viewers. So thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you to Doug and Dr. Gordon and Dr. Cayouette for sharing their insights today. All right, so next I would like to introduce to you three individuals who are each living with vision loss, different eye conditions. And today they're going to share with us how their lives intersect with some of the critical results that we see in this report. So we have three speakers. We have Doug Purdy, who's joining us from Vancouver, Franca Capello, who's joining us from Calgary, and Pierre Langlois, who's joining us from Montreal. So I'm going to turn it over now to Fighting Blindness Canada's Director of Research and Mission Programs, Dr. Larissa Moniz, who will be having a chat with each of our panelists. And please remember, if you have questions at any time, feel free to pop them in and we will answer them at the end. All right, over to you, Larissa.
Thank you, Morgan, and thank you to Dr. Gordon and Dr. Cayouette as well. That was a really interesting session, and I think, as Morgan said, we're really going to hear some real-life experience from some of the stats that we heard, the idea about the importance of diagnosis and treatment, as well as the importance of research. And while I have the soapbox, I just also want to put in a little bit of a plug for our e-news that just came out today, our e-newsletter, because well, we have it, it's a monthly e-newsletter, so I really hope you sign up for it. But this month, we're really excited because we announced 3 recipients of our Clinician Scientist Emerging Leader Award. So what Michel Cayouette was talking about, how we're really trying to support early career talent in vision research. And so please read more about that in our e-newsletter, and we're hopefully going to have these extraordinary clinician scientists on for a viewpoint in the summertime. So we're really excited to tell you more about them and their research. And also there are actually 2 short articles about some clinical trials, including one about optogenetics, again, referring back to what Dr. Cayouette was talking about. But let's get to the important things right now, which is talking to our panelists. So thank you all for coming today. I'm going to start with you, Doug, if that's okay. Yeah, so if you want to take yourself off mute, if you can do that. So we heard from the other Doug, from Doug Earle and from Dr. Keith Gordon, about the fact that up to 3 out of 4 cases of vision loss could be either prevented or treated if caught early. And that was a really, really striking stat when I first heard it. So Doug, I know that you have wet age-related macular degeneration as well as glaucoma. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your diagnosis experience, and according to you, do you feel like your eye diseases were caught early enough?
Well, absolutely. I've been very fortunate over the years. As a matter of fact, when Dr. Gordon started listing the 4 different types of eye disorders, including cataracts, AMD, and glaucoma, I thought, well, if I'm a baseball player, I'm 3 out of 4, because I've had cataracts and had them removed very early on in my mid to late 50s. I was diagnosed with dry macular degeneration in my 60s, and then began the treatment for wet macular degeneration about 2008 or so, and started with Avastin, and then switched over to Lucentis when it came out, and then more recently Eylea. And then this past year, January, had an eye infection, and they were worried that my body was reacting to the Eylea, so they put me back on the Lucentis. So that was an interesting experience, because it was my good eye that was impacted by the infection, and I couldn't see very well for a couple of weeks, and then it eventually cleared up. Otherwise, I would have had extremely compromised vision. The other thing I'd like to mention in this time where we see all kinds of issues around racism and so on, is that I have a wonderful team of doctors, Dr. Albiani, Kirker, and Merker. And when we're in the waiting room the disease cuts across all ethnic groups. Nobody is spared from eye disease. We are all affected by it, and we have a very ethnically diverse community in Vancouver, and I share the disease with all my neighbors, irrespective of their ethnicity. So that's been interesting as well. The treatment part I've been so fortunate with because of the treatments that are available, and very early on the provincial government in British Columbia authorized the covering of the Avastin and then subsequent treatments as well. The glaucoma was a more recent phenomenon for me because that's in my right eye primarily. So that's a double whammy, as one knows if they know anything about eye disease, where the macular degeneration impacts your core vision and the glaucoma, your peripheral vision. So I've been very fortunate there with the treatment of it by eye drops, Causopt, and that has managed the eye pressure so that I've been able to balance my sight, and it's been maintained over the last, in particular, 5 or 6 years as it began to deteriorate a little bit, because I just turned 80 in May, but I still have a very active business. My wife is my business partner, and I have other staff that work with me. But I've been fortunate with the treatment that I've had, with the regimen that I've had, with the injections in both eyes every month, with the glaucoma treatments, to be able to sustain my vision. So I've been able to sustain my business. So that, for that, I am most thankful. And without that treatment, my financial circumstances, my family's circumstances would be far different than they are now. So, and I'm a great supporter of Fighting Blindness Canada. I have a fabulous ophthalmologist, and Briar Sexton, who regularly, annually, provides me of field of vision treatments and so on. So there's a bevy of resources that have been made available to me that I'm very fortunate to have to be able to sustain my vision. And so there you have it.
Oh, that's actually really, really nice to hear, Doug. Thank you for telling us all those details. This really sounds like all those innovative treatments, and there's so many that you mentioned that without sort of, not only are you on one anti-VEGF, you tried multiple ones. It really shows the importance of having multiple treatments, different treatment options. I had a couple of just like quick follow-up questions to what you were talking about. So in terms of getting diagnosed, like how did you first get diagnosed? Was it a regular eye exam, or did you notice something was wrong?
No, it was an ophthalmologist that I went to regularly. I started wearing glasses when I was 8 years of age, and so I've had glasses all my life. But with regular checkups, of course, I was going to an ophthalmologist who very astutely picked it up, as I said, in my early 50s, and he said he'll keep an eye on it, and called me back regularly, which I dutifully went to, and it was through his diligence as an ophthalmologist and my own, I've got to take care of my vision because I have very active businesses, that I was highly motivated to do that. And I was fortunate to have him identify it early, give me literature early, and then and had enough information at my disposal from him when it began to transition from dry to wet, I was able to recognize what was going on with my sight very quickly. The wavy lines, the Amstel grid, I used to have that by my bedside and check that regularly. and see where the blind spots were in it for my right eye, which was worse than my left, and so on. So it was that kind of my own diligence and motivation as well, with the tools that were provided me to pay attention to what was going on, and quickly got myself back to the doctor, and they immediately referred me to the retina specialist for the treatment. So it's very important to have those regular checkups, to have the doctors who are on top of their game to identify issues and to make the necessary referrals to other specialists as you're required. So I was in the right place at the right time with the right set of resources. And I know that there are people who are, in smaller communities, who have fewer doctors and so on, who don't have those same access to the same doctors, same expertise, and have the same level of treatments available to them, which makes it difficult for many.
Yeah, definitely. It's really, it sounds like you've had a really good support network, both from your family and friends, but also your healthcare professionals. But yeah, unfortunately, we know it's a little bit of a patchwork across the country, what is approved where, what tests are available, or what people know about. So actually, just two things to follow up on what you said. So for the Amsler grids, if anybody is interested in an Amsler grid, it helps if you've got dry AMD, you should use it regularly to see if your eyesight is changing or if your vision's changing. So you can get one through Fighting Blindness Canada. You can email Morgan after the session. I'm sure she can send you a link for that. But also, just like a last follow-up question before I move on to the next panelist. You mentioned changing treatment so many times. So I was just wondering what your experience was when you were talking to your doctors about having to change medications. Did they tell you why you had to change? Did you feel comfortable with the change? Did you feel like you had a choice in the matter? Like, what was your experience?
First of all, the team are superb. It was always a discussion with them. They were telling me, and of course I'm not a shy retiring guy. I said, why? And looked into the product itself, the new drug, as the case was. And knew that there were advances being made because I was following treatments and so on. So it was always a collaborative process with them. And I trust them and their judgment. They are on top of their game, and was moving to, if you will, the next best thing. And then when I moved from the Lucentis to the Eylea, which gives a longer time between injections, there was also the economic factor there as well, as far as the cost to government. And so I thought, why not? But they were very quick when they thought that there might be a problem with my body's reaction to the Eylea, that they reverted back to the Lucentis very quickly. And that, again, was done collaboratively with them. I think that's the other piece, is for anybody that has macular degeneration or who has eye or any kind of vision loss, do not be afraid to ask questions. Ask as many questions as you can, and make sure that you are satisfied with the responses that you're getting, and do your own research if you have the resources to do so as well. So
I couldn't have said it better myself, Doug. Actually, I feel like I know I'm guilty of this too. Is I often, if a doctor tells me something, you don't want to be a bother, or you just assume that they know best, and they do know a lot, but they don't know your personal history. Sometimes you have to ask the questions. You've got to explain how you're feeling, and if anybody's listening and maybe has questions, they don't even know what questions to ask. You can come to fightingblindness.ca, look at our health information on our website. That might give you a few more, like a little bit more information, or call our health information line, which again, Morgan can send that information, and our health information officer can help walk you through what are you concerned about? Maybe these are questions you should ask your doctor about the treatment you're on, or maybe other possible treatments, because it is really complicated and it's really hard to know all the options out there.
Well, and it's a very emotional time too. It's, you know, people are impacted by it and they're fearful. They don't know what's going on. And so it's understandable that, you know, it's kind of like walking into the doctor and you're hearing you've got cancer, and the next thing all you can hear is, so the same thing with, you know, with blindness, if you're impacted by it and have the potential of it, it's some people go and can't hear. And so that's the other piece is if you have a partner who can also be there with the doctor and ask questions as well, bring them along as well to be a support to you. So the more support, the better. The more questions, the better. The better information you're going to receive. And then be diligent about your own treatment, and, you know, good things can come of it.
Thank you so much, Doug. I'm going to actually ask Fran now if you can take yourself off mute. I've got a couple of questions for you, because I know that I think unfortunately you had a very different diagnosis experience than Doug did. So you have diabetic retinopathy. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your personal experience with diagnosis.
Oddly enough, my experiences share some similarities to what Doug had explained about his. But yes, my diagnosis with diabetic retinopathy was so far removed from that appointment. I had had cataract surgery. 3 weeks later, there was no improvement to the vision, which that's all I continually heard before and post-op. And the surgeon on that appointment went, uh-oh, and I knew that wasn't good. No one ever wants to hear that in a medical appointment. And he referred me to a retina specialist. So I go see the retina specialist, and he's doing his exam, and he's kind of speaking to himself more than he's speaking to me. And then he said, well, he said, I would surmise that this is probably a result of your diabetic retinopathy. And then he just carried on. He kept talking about the diabetic retinopathy. And I just put my hand up and I said, I'm sorry, but I have no idea what you're talking about. And he says, the diabetic retinopathy. And I said, no, still not catching it. I said, those are two words that I don't know. I've never heard before. So you're going to have to backtrack. And he looked at me out of frustration, out of horror and disbelief, as I continued to tell him that I had no idea what he was talking about. And finally, the next words out of his mouth were, you have no idea that you've had and are continuing to live with diabetic retinopathy. No, nothing. So that was the beginning. Actually, I thought about this last night. I wanted to say that this was the beginning of the vision loss. But in fact, I know now, being also a provincial advocate for Diabetes Canada, it started way back. I'm 29 years into type 2 diabetes. My very first endocrinologist offered up, sort of tongue-in-cheek, would I like to engage in limb amputation, heart disease, stroke. He named off a few things. Oddly enough, vision loss wasn't in that discussion. So here I am, almost 30 years into it. And pardon the pun, but I didn't see this coming. I really thought that the heart attack, the stroke, and even a leg amputation was probably in the cards for me, not vision loss. So once the diagnosis, once he told me about the diabetic retinopathy, we did take a step back, because I had to understand why and how. It wasn't just the fact that you're diabetic. I needed to know, what did we miss? So he walked with me in those early days, trying to explain what he knew to be true and what I could manage from memory. Unfortunately for me, I had relocated from Ottawa to Calgary, and none of my medical records made it here. So memory became a big part of how to put the pieces of the puzzle together. So I knew that I had had some vision issues. I started wearing glasses at the age of 13. My mother was a stickler about eye appointments and dental appointments, and I thank God for that, because she ingrained it in us. So even as we went out into the world on our own, we still maintained those pieces of our life, realizing that, you know, you only have one set of eyes, and if you don't look after them, it's just not going to work. So I maintained that. And when I came back to Calgary, one of the very first things I did is I found an optometrist, went for immediate check and made sure everything was good. And we set the bar and moved forward. And then approximately maybe 7 years, I went back to see him because I had noticed some changes in my vision. And he agreed, and we changed the lenses on my glasses, my prescription, and certainly improved things. But at that stage, there may have already been other things going on, because I was diagnosed upon my arrival from Ottawa of the diabetes. And I suspect, I don't know for certain, but I suspect that the two entities met and kind of joined forces.
Mm-hmm.
And then within 5 years of that, I'm having my first cataract surgery. And when that cataract surgery didn't provide the improved vision that I had heard from so many people, I got concerned again. So when I went back for the post-op appointment and heard, uh-oh, I thought, yeah, I should always follow what my body's telling me. That was lesson number one. Lesson number two for me was that it didn't have to stay as status quo. I had, and I say this as respectful as I can, even this far into my journey, I had so-called health professionals who were not helpful, truly not helpful. The first endocrinologist introduced himself as a scientist first and a physician second, and he proved it in every appointment. He wasn't interested in mildly treating the diabetes, but it was more about what had happened in the past and where this thing seemed to be moving. But I never had any resolution. I never was able to get any clear answers. Every time I asked about diabetes, because I knew nothing about it. No one in my family, entire family, and it's a large family, had ever been diagnosed with diabetes. So I really came at it with zero information. And the more I complained about it and pointed out to them that I didn't know the verbiage, I didn't understand the science, it seemed to fall on deaf ears. They just moved forward. It was almost like a pre-recording of a presentation. They just kept going and they never took time to explain. I have to tell you that I give big points to a neighborhood pharmacist, a young man who I went to see after my very first appointment with the endocrinologist in tears, because I still didn't understand what he had told me and what I was supposed to do with the limited information. And he was compassionate, empathetic, and smart. He sat me down and started to teach me. And after every appointment with the endocrinologist, I ended up back at his counter to ask questions, to get answers, to get some kind of support. So he was a lifesaver for me. But
Yeah,
at that time,
oh, sorry. No,
sorry.
So, no, I finished what you were going to say.
I think I've sidetracked, and I'm sorry
Yeah.
for that.
No,
Larissa.
that's okay. Yeah.
Once we figured out that I had the diabetic retinopathy, it was a quick, slippery slide, if you will. I had, as I said, my second revelation was that I didn't have to stay in that healthcare quagmire without guidance and without information. And little by little, I started replacing the physicians that I had. And that was 16 or 17 years ago. And I still have the best team around me. And I am ever, ever so thankful. My retina specialist here in Calgary is Dr. Jeff Williams. He is the best. He is compassionate. He is smart. He is outside the box thinking. He's not afraid to share. He's not afraid to lead, and has instilled a confidence and faith and trust, not just in him, but in my whole medical team that I'm surrounded by. He leaves me speechless most days because he has a wonderful sense of humor. And I committed to him about 11 years ago. Tell me what I need to do so that we work together. He told me what I needed to do. I took it seriously. I lost 100 pounds to get to where I needed to be. And then I said to him, you lead, I will follow. So we did some of the anti-VEGF drugs, injections that Doug had mentioned, the Lucentis, the Avastin, Eylea. And then one day he suggested that we try something else. It was a steroid that we had never used before. And all I remember him telling me was that it had been designed for the treatment of certain cancers. And I said to him, you took me from 3 self-medicating, 3 Ativan's just to get me in the chair, to no anti-anxiety meds, nothing. And I said, I'm going to trust you on this. So we did try this one steroid, and clearly I knew nothing about it. Asked for what to expect, what kind of results we would be looking for, and what side effects were there. So I have some information going into it. And today I said yes. We moved straight ahead. The worst part about that particular medication was the injection itself. Again, I'm almost 30 years into diabetes, have been using insulin at least 25 out of that 30 years. And I hate needles. I still hate needles.
You're not alone there.
I'm still coping with it. And to me, the very worst thing that someone could do is to inject my eyes. I just wasn't handling it. Fear took over big way. And most of that foundation of fear was laid heavily on me in that first grouping of doctors that I had to deal with. They gave me nothing to correct the behavior, nothing to ease my fears, just a complete lack of information. And that set me up for a lot of pain and suffering moving forward. Again, I'm in the best place I can be now.
It's nice to hear that it's nice to hear that you found sort of the support, the healthcare professionals that you need. And Yeah, so we're
It is
talking
the
about
complete opposite. It is
yeah,
the complete
lack
opposite.
of information.
I've got all my doctors talking to each other. Because of the diabetes, it's affected everything. And vision loss has certainly made its way to the top of the list, but I've had foot issues. I've had what they thought was heart issues, which later was diagnosed as asthma. So there's been other things that have come up that I've had to see other specialists, and they've all maintained a place on this team in very high standing, I might add, and they all speak to each other. So if I have a foot infection, my podiatrist is calling my endocrinologist and vice versa for them to come together and figure out a mutually the right plan for me. So, and everybody is CC'd the GP. So
Yeah.
she's a busy lady. I had, after the diabetic retinopathy, I was by this time seeing Dr. Williams. Sorry, I have a dog.
Yeah.
I was diagnosed with the diabetic retinopathy, the wet macular degeneration, and more recently, in the last couple of years, glaucoma layered on top of that. So we've done injections for 15 years in total. Prior to the injections, we did 16 rounds of laser, 2 vitrectomies to try to stop the
Wow.
bleeding following the cataract surgery. And I don't mind sharing that my best year has been 2020 and 2021. My last eye injections were March 9th, 2020, at the hands of Dr. Williams. The steroid injections that I was blessed to try, I was able to do for a couple of years because my then spouse was on a private plan through his employer. When he changed jobs, he lost that plan. I no longer could afford doing the steroid injections because at that time, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they were approximately $1,800 per eye. And I should also add that following that first cataract surgery, a year and a half later, I ended up doing the other eye. So we went from treating one eye with the anti-VEGFs to moving into another level, if you will.
Ben, I'm sorry. I want to move on to Pierre just because I know we have limited time. So
sorry.
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm sorry to have to cut you off, but
not a problem. I appreciate.
No, thank you for telling us. It sounds like a really complicated medical history, and I'm sorry that you had some sort of negative experiences at the beginning, but I'm glad you found some people who can support you now. And
I want to end this on a high note because I live with great hope and faith. I said that my best year was this last year. I haven't had any more injections since March 9th, 2020. Every appointment that I get to go see Dr. Williams, it's still 2 thumbs up. I am doing glaucoma drops, but that's it. So something in this last year changed, and we don't know exactly what it was. We're hoping that it was this particular steroid. That steroid is not available to anybody who's on a Blue Cross plan, as an example. I understand that Quebec partially funds that drug, but none of the other provinces do. So I'm going to leave it there for now. I thank you for listening. Sorry about taking the extra time.
It's so nice to hear. And I think, what you said right at the end there too, just the importance of having multiple treatment options. It's so important because not everything works for each individual.
It's absolutely true.
Yeah, not only available, but that when we say available, we don't mean that it just exists in Canada. It means that people can afford it and that they can access it. So,
and if I may, I also agree with what Doug said about asking lots of questions.
Mhm.
Don't stop asking questions. Just the more you know, the better you are.
Yeah, I 2 thumbs up for that. Couldn't agree more. It's always important to sort of advocate for yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you.
No, thank you. And yeah, on to you, Pierre. Thank you for rounding us out. So I know you have a slightly different experience where you have a different type of eye disease. You have a type of inherited disease that's called choroideremia. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means for your vision? And you're on mute right now, just so you know. Yep, you're still on mute. Oh, Pierre, you're on mute. We can't hear you. It's Alt A, I believe, to get off mute. Still on mute. Yes. Oh, nope, you're back on mute for some. Oh, you almost had it. Try one more time. Yes, that is great.
Okay, okay, good.
Yeah.
I also I would like to say I also live with hope and faith because well, I have choroideremia. It's a disease that slowly but surely takes away your vision field. And today I am 67 years old, and I have quite a severe eyesight loss. At 32 years old, I was a mechanic, machine tool mechanic, a very good one. And unfortunately, I had at that point, I had lost so much vision field that I couldn't do my trade anymore. So I became a stay-home dad with 4 kids. Today I have six grandchildren, and 2 of them, unfortunately, have inherited my choroideremia gene. So, and they are 2 boys. So they will be for sure, when they get the teen years, they will start slowly but surely to begin to lose their vision field. So that hurts. And that's research. That's why I participate in research for me and for my grandsons. Research is very important, and it gives hope to those who needs it. I had the chance to participate in a gene therapy with Dr. Robert Konikoop team. I went to Miami, which is not that unpleasant, and I went there with my wonderful daughter Alexandra, which she's been helping me all her life, and we know each other. You know, of course, we know each other very good. She knows what I need when we go to a rendezvous. She assists me all the time, and so I went to Miami, received a treatment on my left eye, which is my eye that was seeing the less. They kept my good eye. They kept my good eye, so they work on my left eye, in which I had a small island of vision left. So they injected healthy genes in it, and it did help. And after a few tests, vision test, sharp, when there's a shark 5 meters away, tests like that, and the therapy did help me to improve a little bit on my eye. Did help me to see to better see the colors around me, like the green grass and the trees and so on. And so what can I say? What can I add? Research is so important. I was supposed, I am a good patient. I am a good receiver of the treatment, because I didn't have no inflammation, no infection, everything went well, and also the improvement on the eye was quite good. Of course, we're starting from very far from a good vision, and the improvement is it's not spectacular from the outside of a person would see me walk around, but to me from the inside, I know this is a very important treatment. I was supposed to go in 2020 to go again to do my other eye. Unfortunately, with the COVID, that didn't happen. I'm still hopeful for, even though I am 67 years old, I think I have quite many good years ahead of me. If I would be able to see a few years, to see better with the years that I still have to live, that would be fantastic. You see, I am a Montreal Canadiens fan. I watch the hockey games. Well, no, I don't watch them. I listen to the hockey games, but I wish so much I could see those games. I wish so much that I could see the beach at Miami, so on. So the eyesight is so important, so important in our lives. So research, money for research is so important. So anything I can do to participate or to help, I'm willing to go anytime. So that's about it.
Well, thank you. I was gonna say, and sort of, this is exactly why we've asked you and Fran and Doug to come and just to help us raise awareness, and it's so important to hear from you. Yeah, I really like the idea that, like you mentioned, that you got a bit of eyesight back, and so just that little bit was so important. Yep. I really do hope you get to get your other eye done soon. I've heard that they're starting to reduce border restrictions really soon, so I think we're starting to move out of it. But also when you talked about the hope, the fact that since you have
and especially if they were to do my other eye, which is my good eye, so imagine the improvement. That would be fantastic.
Exactly. And we're in such an exciting moment where there actually are now treatments coming through clinical trials, and all of these treatments, like you said, it took research to get there. So important to keep on funding research, but also to make sure that Canadians have access to clinical trials.
Yep.
If they're in America or another country, that's great, but if they can come to Canada, even better. Have them closer to home, have easier access for Canadians to access them. We think that's also, I'm sure you would agree that it would have been even better if you could have gone down to see Dr. Kunakup and have him do the,
of course.
The thing itself.
Yes.
So
yes.
Yeah. One other thing, like, if you could just talk a little bit more, you mentioned it, but the reason you said you did research, it was for the hope, and it sounds like a lot of it is for the hope for your children and grandchildren too.
Yes.
It's which I thought was a really, really nice sentiment. So just I just want to thank you for that.
And also I would like to add that gene therapy for the eye, gene therapy could also get better, and could also be applied to any other organs of the body. That's so research in gene therapy for the eye could benefit many other fields of research.
Definitely. The same way, I'm not sure if it was Fran or Doug who mentioned this, that the treatment they got was originally a cancer treatment, and the same way now treatments like gene therapies that are first starting in the eye, and they're starting in the eye for, there's a whole bunch of reasons, but now that it's there, hopefully for many other different diseases as well. Research in every area, it sort of raises all boats. I'm a basic scientist by training myself, so I don't discriminate. I think funding research across the board is great, but funding vision research is the best, obviously.
And and therapy on the eye is the eye, is the organ the easiest to reach in the body.
Yep. That's exactly right. It's the easiest to reach. And another interesting thing about it is that it's considered immune privileged. So there isn't as much of an immune reaction that happens, which makes it a little bit easier sometimes to start to try these therapies in there, because you're not going to have a inflammation reaction. And I can see Morgan and Doug popping up, so I think our chat is over and it's time to move on to questions. So yeah, thank you so much for chatting with me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larissa, and thank you so much, Doug and Fran and Pierre, for sharing with us today. We want to get to our audience questions. We already have some coming in, so I'll give everyone a moment to just have a breather, and if you have a question, please feel free to put it in the Q&A box or email. Again, that email address is education@fightingblindness.ca. So before we get to the Q&A, I do just want to take a short pause to thank all of our core supporters who have tuned in today. We really couldn't do what we do without your generous support, so thank you so much. Bringing innovative sight-saving treatments to Canada is what we're all about. You know, research is expensive, it's a long-term investment, but the results can be life-changing, as we've already talked about today. So if there's anyone out there who would like to join our community of core supporters, we want to let you know you can make a tremendous difference by joining our monthly giving program. For as little as $1 a day or even $10 a month, your gift makes a huge impact for people living with vision loss. So please consider joining us today. You can learn more at our website, fightingblindness.ca, or you can contact us by phone, 1-800-461-3331. All right, so let's have a look at some questions here. And we've also been joined by Doug Earle. So if you have questions for Doug, you can ask them as well. So we have a question here, and this is a bit of a complicated question, but it is also a question that we get asked a lot. And maybe I'll ask Larissa to take a first pass here. So Kamal's asking, he's saying there's been significant developments both in gene therapy and stem cell therapy, you know, and he talks about many diseases, so IRDs, AMD, etc. But what exactly really are the timelines for some of these treatments to be available? How do they get passed through Health Canada? How will we know who suitable candidates are for these types of treatments?
Okay, so in terms of gene therapy, so we already have the first gene therapy approved in Canada. So that's Luxturna, which is for a very specific gene mutation. There are other clinical trials happening right now, which are in different phases. So phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, which is the final phase. So in general, to get through the whole clinical trial process, we say, I think it's about 6 to 10 years. And then for it to be approved by Health Canada, it can be another between 2 to even 5 years. So depending on it getting approved, but then also it being funded by the government. So you're sort of looking at from the time it starts clinical trials to the time it's approved, I would say between 10 and 15 years as a rough estimate. And for a lot of gene therapies, as I mentioned, they are gene specific. So it might only work if you have a specific mutation or a specific mutation in a gene, but for other types of therapies like stem cell therapies and certain types of gene therapies as well, they might be for very, very many different types of diseases. Those stem cell therapies are a little bit earlier in the clinical trial process. There aren't as many of them happening. So I think we're a little bit further behind, but I think in the coming years, we're going to hear about more and more different gene therapies. And yeah, just as a little plug, we are, like Michelle had mentioned, but like talking to your MP, we do have an email campaign going right now on approveluxturna.ca about trying to get Luxturna publicly funded in Canada. And so, of course, it's important for people who could take Luxturna, which is individuals who have RPE65. But for, I think, anybody who's interested in getting innovative treatments to Canada, it's really important that we all stand up and try to get them into Canada as quickly as possible.
I just add, Morgan, that Luxturna is an example, actually, because of the inherited eye diseases. They're fast-tracked, so they receive what's called orphan drug status with the U.S. regulator and Health Canada. So Luxturna was about a 7-year process before it was approved by the FDA in the United States in December 2017, and then it was approved by Health Canada October 2020, and thank you, Larissa. Normally it's me mentioning approveluxturna.ca, but I did get it in there. Because we're in the middle of a bureaucratic process to decide for recommendations and decisions being made by provincial governments to fund this first gene therapy, which will set the precedent. It'll be the first, and then the second, third, and the 40th gene therapy that comes. The way will have been laid that this is a publicly funded treatment, so there's no barriers to access this ability to restore sight.
Absolutely. Thanks, Doug. And so another question we have here is another question that I get often, and maybe Doug, I'll pass this to you, but the report kind of was spurned on by CCB, and then we've partnered with them to kind of talk about it. What are the linkages between Fighting Blindness Canada, CCB, and also CNIB?
Sure. So there really are three primary national vision loss organizations, and we each have different roles that we play, different mandates, but we come together to advocate. And I think it's one voice in the community is very powerful. So the CNIB, of course, they're trying to change the way you can live with blindness. The Canadian Council of the Blind is a network of chapters and individuals that come together for social recreational points. They have, the CNIB has technology stores. The Canadian Council of the Blind, CCB, has a get together with technology where volunteers mentor your use. But we do all come together, and of course, forgot about Fighting Blindness Canada, we're the largest charitable funder of vision research in the country, and our second mandate is access to treatment. So it's great we can fund these treatments like Luxturna, but if you can't access them when you need it, then it's it's not helpful. So we're quite active in that, and that's where we come together. So when Luxturna was going through the regulatory process, the three organizations worked together to provide a united voice for people living with vision loss. And I'm very proud of the fact in that report that happened just last year. It was almost a page and a half of the decision was referencing the patient, the input from people living with vision loss. So together we have one voice in trying to improve access to care.
Absolutely, it's such an important partnership to join all together. So we have some comments here from Peggy in the chat. And Peggy, I think she had a question for Doug Purdy around his medication that he talked about, and she was asking if it's ingested or in eye drop form. I'm assuming that was for the glaucoma, but I'm not sure. And sorry, Doug, you are muted. There we go. Yeah.
Sure. Yes, it is an eye drop form, and actually I use it in both eyes. And it is done twice a day, and it's Cayouette. I was taking two other drugs as well. There are a variety of treatments, and it's very important that you check with your specialist as to what the most appropriate treatment would be in your particular case. But for this, Cayouette was best for me. After when it was first diagnosed, I had two different drops, and then eventually, as I gained control of the eye pressure, the Cayouette has been sufficient.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Doug. We have another question here from Andra. And Andra said it's been very interesting to hear about the process of switching medications in consultation with a clinician. As we may or may not be aware, all of the panelist provinces, so British Columbia, Alberta, and Quebec, have policies in place which may impact treatment of AMD when ophthalmic biosimilars emerge in Canada. Larissa or Doug, did you have any comments on that?
I can start and then Doug can add in. So yes, so if people don't know biosimilars, they're similar to the idea of a generic drug. So when a drug goes off patent, you often have generic drugs. The way anti-VEGF treatments are, they're called a biological type of treatment. So biosimilars are the equivalent of that. So biosimilars, they are coming to Canada. Sounds like a new release coming soon. They are in other countries as well, but not yet in Canada. And so it would essentially be just a different version of the drug. And so as an organization, what we think is really important is that if a biosimilar is approved, that it has been shown to be safe and effective. and that patients are given information about the option of changing. And I know some provinces, they might make biosimilars the first line option, which I think there are some good arguments for that from a cost saving perspective. But we think it's very important that patients are well informed, and that if the treatment isn't right for them, that they then have other options. They can switch to other options. And so we are currently working with a number of organizations, both nationally as internationally, to sort of get ready for this biosimilar movement and make sure that we have the right information for patients and for healthcare professionals to sort of explain these new treatment paradigms. Doug, do you have anything to add?
Okay, thank you. So Rose has said, I was shocked to hear that cataracts contributed to vision loss more so than macular degeneration, as cataract surgery is so specialized now. Why is this? Is this because of lack of access to treatment for the cataracts?
So that's actually one of the findings of the cost of vision loss and blindness report in Canada. We discovered that cataract surgeries have basically been flatlined in government funding and the number of surgeries that are offered to Canadians. Yet we found that the number of people living with vision loss has gone up 50%. The surgeries have basically been flatlined. So when you delay those cataract surgeries, it becomes a more complicated surgery. The lens, of course, deteriorates more. People are more susceptible to falls, and the result is that you don't get the same optimal health outcomes that you would get if the surgery happened when you wanted it. And of course, with COVID and all of the canceled elective surgeries, just in Ontario, for example, 114,000 Ontarians have had their surgery canceled. And Deloitte Canada estimated that it would add another 75 days to the wait list. So people, and there's been some research that we're looking at right now as we're going to be issuing a COVID appendum to the cost of blindness report that's saying it could take 2 to 5 years, depending on the model, to catch up with all these surgeries. Well, that will have an impact, and it will, with people waiting longer, and it will have an impact of them having less vision when after the wait time because of the delay. And it's a shame, because in a country like Canada, cataracts should not be causing vision loss. Other parts of the world where they don't have access to the surgery or these lenses, yes, but in Canada that shouldn't be the case. And that's in part why we're encouraging people to go to stopvisionloss.ca to sign our petition for a national vision health plan, and to raise our voice when we will be launching in the summer a campaign around encouraging more investment in cataract surgeries in the country.
Thank you, Doug. That's perfect, because that was my next plug as for stopvisionloss.ca, and I will send that out to everyone in a follow-up email if you'd like to sign the petition. We definitely encourage and appreciate anyone's support with that. Well, I think we're at the end of our time for today. Does anyone have any just last thoughts? Anything I've forgotten, Doug, to mention?
No, I just really thank Pierre and Doug and Fran for joining us, and of course the amazing people I work with at Fighting Blindness, Larissa and Morgan. This has been a very important report to update what it is in Canada with the cost of vision loss and blindness. It's going to feed a lot of opportunities for the community to step up and talk about how government must respond, how our healthcare system must respond, so that we can prevent blindness. There's 8 million Canadians living with vision loss, or living with a blinding eye disease that could lead to vision loss. And we need to be more proactive. The community needs to be more proactive to slow down, prevent blindness. And we encourage people to go to stopvisionloss.ca to sign the petition. So thank you. Thank you for your time, and thank you for adding your voice